I want Hilary Swank in the next Terminator movie so bad.
There is nothing in this world that you give me to do to hug a robot.
It's because it's so incredible and intricate that it's impossible not to notice.
Music's the core of this movie.
I was born again to watch this movie.
You'll find redeeming things and you'll be thinking about it for a long time afterwards.
There was no bone saw.
Just John hamming it up over here.
2.5 out of 3 of us recommend it.
Everybody loves talking about movies. Let's talk about movies.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of The Fast and the Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw. Oh, and by the way, Podcast Nation, this is the Pause, Rewind, Play podcast. We're super stoked to have you here. Before we kind of get going anywhere, let's introduce the cast tonight. So we have Vince. How's it going?
I'm what you might call a champagne problem. How's that for a Shaw impression?
5 stars out of 10. It was in the middle.
How's it going? I'm happy to be here.
And Josh, how's it going?
Here comes the kryptonite.
That was awful. That was a Hobbs, but
All right, who did it better?
definitely Vince.
I'm going to go with Vince.
Yeah! Oh, I think I just blew out the mic again.
It's all good. I'm trying to get these adjusted so we don't have that problem. So anyone who wants to come over and educate me on how to better run my mics, please do.
We're always learning.
Always, every single week. All right, everyone. So we're going to kind of get started with what we're watching this week. Josh, what did you watch?
Absolutely nothing, almost.
Whoa.
I mean, besides Hobbs and Shaw, and I'm just still watching Community. That's pretty much all I'm watching right now. Whether I'm at work or with free time, I just watch Community. It's so good. I love it.
Yeah, it's a good use of your time.
How many seasons of Community are there?
6.
Yeah, because 6 seasons in a movie. We're just waiting for that movie.
6 seasons in a movie. I hope that they get everyone for the movie.
Yeah, Dan Harmon says it will happen someday.
Yeah,
But
who
good
knows
luck
when?
getting these all-star casts back together. Donald
exactly.
Glover's he's off doing his everything. He's off literally doing everything.
Literally doing everything.
And
Childish Gambino, he's starring in The Lion King, which, by the way, I have no clue how, but The Lion King is freaking killing it in the box office. It's now the 14th highest grossing film of all time.
it's got that nostalgia thing. People love The Lion King.
I know, and it was good, but still, just like, I look at that and I'm like, how does it get more than all these other movies?
Aladdin just killed it too, and they announced today that they're trying to figure out how to do a sequel because it did so well.
Remember, there was Aladdin 2 and probably a third that I probably don't know about.
I'm pretty sure there was
Return
a
of
third.
Jafar, and then they had the one where Aladdin's dad shows up.
Don't they
About
get-
a golden hand or
Doesn't
something.
they get married in the third one? Or is
I
it the
don't
second
know.
one?
Oh, yeah, where he has like the hand of Midas, right?
Yeah,
Where
I
it looks
think
like
so.
this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully not like those. I didn't like those very much. Maybe that's just me, though. Who knows?
Yeah, I'd rather them do their own little thing.
So, yeah. Anyway, so that's it for me. Being super crazy that Lion King is doing that well and watching Community and working. That's been my week.
Wow. You need to watch more TV. I'm just kidding. You've been busy. A lot of things are happening in the life of Josh. Maybe he'll tell you about them sometime if you ask him on the street. Okay, Vince, what did you watch this week?
I watched a lot this week. I was the opposite of you. So I watched a horror movie called The Perfection on Netflix. It was good. My wife loved it. Michael, who has been on this podcast a couple of times, he's a huge horror fan, and he recommended it to me because he loved it. I would say watch it. It's good. Don't look into it.
I think he told us that one here, didn't he?
Oh, he probably did.
I think so. Because I remember, like, you said that, and I remembered instantly. It was almost like, oh, yeah, I need to watch that.
Yeah, it's good. Don't look into what it's about. It was a lot of fun
Before
not
you
knowing
watch.
anything about it. Yeah, and I think he probably recommended. That's how he told me to watch it too. So, we watched that one. It was good. I went and saw Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Ooh.
And it was great. It was so much fun. It feels like watching a high budget Goosebumps movie.
Really?
Like, did you guys grow up watching Goosebumps in your kids?
Yeah.
Like, or Are You Afraid of the Dark? Anything like that?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, felt like that, but like done really, really well with a
the
big
movies.
budget. No, the TV show, like on
TV
Nickelodeon.
series.
Oh, see,
yeah.
I thought you were just actually asking if I was afraid of the dark, and I said
Oh,
yes.
no.
Yes, Vince, I am afraid of the dark.
No,
Thank you.
when I was a kid on Nickelodeon, they had a TV show called Are You Afraid of the Dark? And it was like Goosebumps. It's just like scary stories for kids, you know?
Yeah.
Which used to scare the crap out of me when I was a kid. This felt like a high budget, not grown up, because I don't really know who the target audience is for this one, because it's a spooky movie at times.
So there's still a ton of like comedy and stuff in it?
Yeah, lots of comedy. The actors did great. One of them, the comic relief in particular, I thought he was so funny in it. And they recreated the monsters from the pages of the book, because they had pictures in the book apparently. So they tried to make the monsters as true to the novel as they could, and it comes out so well. And they have some of these horror sequences that are just so creative and done so well. I haven't seen anything like it in a long time, or I guess I haven't seen anything like that done so well in a long time. So it's just a lot of fun. It's PG-13, so like it's that perfect like transition movie for teenagers, you know, who want to go and they want to get that scare. Like 14, 15-year-old kids are going to love it because it's creepy. It's creepy. But it's creepy and it's fun. It's a fun horror.
Oh.
So I saw that. That's all I can think of. I'm still watching The Boys. I have 2 episodes left on that. And we also started Stranger Things Volume 3 for Season 3. And I'm loving the season so much. We're halfway through the season now, and it's great. Like, I'm going to go home, if not too late, make my wife watch another episode with me tonight.
So halfway through, like you watched episode 4?
Yes.
Like the sauna test, not to give anything
sauna
away.
test? Nope, sorry. We must
Okay.
just finish episode 3.
It's about to get crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
go nuts.
I don't know how, so not to go too far into it, but for me, episodes 4 through 8, like it was just so intense that I was like, how is
cool.
like every episode not like the last episode, because it just keeps building and building.
Yeah, because 1, 2, and 3 aren't that intense. It's just kind of like seeing where these characters are, and I'm loving every
really
second
good.
of it. It's so much fun. I think that's about all I've been watching.
Oh, nice. This week I watched Hobbs and Shaw. And then my wife and I watched all of season 3 of Rick and Morty, and then started watching the rest of Rick and Morty, which has been a sheer delight for me to do, because my wife has made fun of me for watching Rick and Morty for so long.
Now
that
she finally gets it.
she's into it, and she's like, "The show is so dumb, but I love it." And then she like laughs all the time, so I know that she really likes it. She's not just telling me she likes it to watch it. So yeah, there's that. And I watched a bunch of like Chef's Table and In the Mind of the Chef. I'm in a really big cooking phase. I think I mentioned that before. So yeah.
Because Rick and Morty is so smartly done. I mean, Dan Harmon.
You guys in your Dan Harmon shows over
We
here.
love Dan Harmon. What can I say? Like, that's the reason.
He's good.
That's the reason that I was able to get into Rick and Morty, because my wife told me I should, and I said no, and she said it's these people do it, and I looked it up and I saw it was Dan Harmon. I was like, okay, I'll do it.
Right.
And that's the only way I've gotten her to watch Community episodes, is telling her it's Dan Harmon, the person who did Rick and Morty.
You're just kind of trading. You're like, this is Dan Harmon. This is Dan Harmon. Dan Harmon
Exactly.
in the house.
Just trading it up.
Nice. Very nice. Very nice. I love that.
Well, if you want a good podcast, he also has a podcast called Harmontown. It's just him on a stage with his buddies, just ad-libbing it. Like, he just kind of talks for a while and interacts with the crowd, and it can be really funny. It can be really raunchy. So, but it's a good time. I listen to it sometimes.
Do you know what's kind of really interesting about Rick and Morty too, and the way they wrote it, is
They writted it.
because there are some vulgarities that are bleeped out, but then there are other ones that are not, which is funny because they'll bleep out the A word one moment and then they won't bleep it out the next like 3 minutes later. It's kind of weird. I noticed that. It's like very random. Allie called it out. I was like, what a weird thing, because I've never noticed it. So yeah, random.
Because who knows why, but sometimes like that bleep is comedic. Like it can be really funny when you have the bleep there sometimes instead of the actual word.
I'm just gonna start adding those in the middle of a thing when someone's like beep, and then
or just like in a random sentence where they don't actually swear.
Yeah.
You just make it sound like.
So I was walking down, there was a fire truck, and it just bleep out the fire part, and then just No, I don't know. That could be funny. But yeah, sounds like it was a kind of, for some of us, a slow week on the television, but we went to the movie we were required to talk about.
And wanted to see.
Yeah, by the way, I thoroughly was stoked to go see this movie. And for what I was looking for in it, it did not disappoint. So we need to get into it a little bit. But obviously, I finally have some not so nice things to say about a movie. Because normally I'm pretty nice about most everything. But I was like, oh my gosh, this movie needs some help.
Yeah.
It had a crutch in the middle. But let's kind of chat about it a little bit.
I've got some the movie stats if you want me to run them down real quick.
Yeah.
Not movie stats, the movie information.
Yeah, throw that out.
So, directed by David Leitch, written by Chris Morgan and Drew Pearce. This movie came out on August 2nd, 2019. It had a budget of $200 million, and in the opening weekend made $60 million. I think I got the information on Sunday night, or maybe it was Monday, so like 2 days ago. So it's been out for a week and a half. Guess how much it's made so far? Well,
$400 million.
No, it's pretty below expectations, isn't it?
As of now, it is. Yeah, still, it hasn't made its budget yet. It's only made $180 million so far.
What?
So it cost $200 million. It's only made $180 million so far. It's the lowest, I want to say.
I'm pretty sure I saw that in a couple places. Yeah,
the lowest.
it's definitely the lowest
performing
performing as far as how it's gone these first few weekends. Who knows if it'll pick up if it gets a good rep.
Yeah.
Some people are saying that it has already hit like 335.2 million.
Okay, maybe IMDb just hasn't updated yet then. And like I said, it was a couple of days ago that I found this. While you look that up, I'll just go through the scores. Rotten Tomato gave it a critic score of 66% and the audience score of 89%. And the IMDb score is a 6.9. Guess how many Oscar nominations this movie has got so far?
0.
Yeah, how did you know?
Because there are no Oscar nominations yet.
So 333 million global.
Okay,
and that
so
was the 11th.
Okay, it's forget what I said then. It's doing well.
But
It's doing fine.
yeah. It just keeps throwing it down. It's the overseas is where the real pump up, but domestically it's 60.8 million. So I guess Americans are tired of this series, or they're just tired of The Rock.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Movie stars: Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as Hobbs, Jason Statham as Shaw, Vanessa Kirby as Hattie, and Idris Elba as Brixton, along with a couple other cameos, but I don't want to say who they are. We'll get into it when we get to the spoilers. So, before we get into it, you want to hear some casting considerations?
Yes.
Ooh, yes.
All right. Any guesses on... So, The Rock has been in... I think this is his fourth Fast and the Furious movie. Do you want to know who they originally wrote the Hobbs character for? There's 2 actors they considered. You want to guess, or do you want me to just tell you?
I'm just trying to think of people who were like The Rock.
Kind of that
just
cop.
That big.
John Cena.
No.
That'd be pretty cool, though.
One guess, Josh.
I can't think of anything right now.
Okay.
I'll just go for it, yeah.
The Hobbs character was originally written for either Tommy Lee Jones or Josh Brolin.
Josh Brolin, could you imagine?
It would have been interesting.
That would have been way intense.
Can you imagine Tommy Lee Jones as Hobbs? It would have been a completely different character.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been way different.
So, good thing they got The Rock for him.
Yeah, Josh Brolin, I mean, he wouldn't have been bad for it because he's got that big build.
Yeah.
It would have been pretty serious, maybe a lot more serious than it is now. But then when you have this movie where so much of it is just the banter between Hobbs and Shaw, I don't know if I could have seen as much of that.
Yeah, I think
with Josh Brolin, because he's so much more serious, But
I think if either of these two were cast, we never would have got a Hobbs and Shaw, because they didn't decide to do Hobbs and Shaw until after Fast and Furious 7. I want to say.
Yeah, because they were like still in the show, right?
Yeah, they had that scene together in Fast 7, and everyone's like, "Well, this is great. Why don't we have more of this?"
Yeah.
One other casting consideration: the faceless voice. They were actually in talks with someone to actually play that character, and it is someone that we discussed needed to be in a Fast and the Furious movie last week. You want to guess?
I can't even remember.
Needed to be in one? We talked about this?
I thought we did.
It's possible. I just
So
forget stuff.
Keanu Reeves was in discussion to play the Faceless Man.
Really?
We did talk about
Or the Faceless Voice. They said that they were in talks with him, but they said creatively it just didn't feel right, so they never brought him in. Which, thank goodness, because I want Keanu Reeves in one of these movies, but I want him in a mainline Fast and Furious, not in a Hobbs and Shaw. A Shobbs and Haw.
Shobbs and Haw.
It sounds like hee-haw.
It sounds like the British version, even though we have a British version. It's Shaw, but it's like the British version of The Office. It's Shobbs and Haw.
Shobbs and Haw. And that's it. That's all the casting considerations. So,
Dang. Well, I liked it.
yeah,
That's
I thought it
pretty
was interesting. It's kind of fun to like look at what could have been, think about what could have been for some of these movies.
Yeah, I guess it's a spoiler. We'll just hold on until later in the film to kind of talk about that. But do we need a synopsis? Josh, do you want to do the synopsis this week?
Sure. I'm not as good as Casey, but we'll do a quick non-spoiler synopsis.
Can you sum it up in a tweet length?
Tweet length?
The length of a tweet?
That's like
Oh,
That's
I
like
have
20
a good
words.
one. I have
That's
a
not
great one. If you
Here, we'll let Casey do his really quick after I finish, because then he can put it together.
Okay.
Is it tweet length? Are you saying?
yeah.
Wow.
Okay. So mine will be, I'll keep it short because I'm pretty bad at this, and I'm not as eloquent as Casey is when he does these things. You have the main American muscle man, Hobbs, played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and you have Jason Statham playing Shaw. You have them side by side, one in England, one in America, each one doing their own thing, living their very different lives, but at the same time, very the same. They're spy, cop-like lives. They both get called in by the CIA to help investigate a special virus that was created sort of in the dark web to sort of shake things up. It was sort of created for good, but then it's being used for bad, as is in many superhero and other movies. So they both get called in, and then they both get called together. These two guys hate each other. Throughout the entire movie, they throw, jokes back and forth at each other about how much of a man and other things they are. They meet Shaw's sister, which is she has like a special virus inside of her, which is going to kill her if she doesn't get it extracted in 48 hours. They go all over the world fighting bad guys, with Brixton, Idris Elba, chasing after them, trying to get it from her, so that he can make sure that it's, exposed into the world, because he's part of the corporation that helped make it. So they go all over. They go to Ukraine. They go to Samoa, fighting bad guys, doing crazy, unreasonable stunts. That's pretty much what it is.
We probably should have said spoilers before that.
Sorry. We'll throw in a spoiler alert before that.
Spoilers. But it was good.
I mean,
That was it?
I support
most
it.
of it. I mean, well, that's just like, because that's the half spoiler, half non-spoiler version, right?
I mean, it's pretty much what you get from the commercial, so.
Whoops.
What was your tweet?
I'm just making sure it fits a tweet, actually.
Even if it doesn't, as long as it's pretty close. This is a human tweet. This is the
All right.
voice Twitter world.
All right, you ready? You ready? Meathead and Dapper Brit reluctantly team up for over-the-top police action, utilizing family relationships and specialized skill set to save the world.
Boom.
Perfect.
Mic drop.
Nailed it.
I'm tweeting that for real, so go retweet that later. Okay.
So before we jump into it, David Leitch, the director, he actually came out with a statement that said that this film will be different from the Fast and the Furious franchise. Although it will be filled with action sequences, cars, and elements that constructed Fast and Furious, it'll feel different from the series. Do you guys agree with that? Do you guys feel like do you guys feel like it was Fast and the Furious-y, or do you feel like it was its own thing?
Standalone. It is a standalone film in my opinion, because it feels like it's like Rush Hour in a way, right? Where these two unlikely partners team up to do something, and that's how I felt the whole time. It was like Jackie Chan and what's that guy's name again? I forget. Chris Tucker. It was like Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker, but this time it was Chris Tucker, i.e. The Rock, and Jackie Chan, i.e. Jason Statham.
Yeah.
So for me, I feel the same, where it is a good standalone film. There's enough to keep it related to the Fast and the Furious, right? Not even in just the characters, but in the action. Because that was sort of when I went in to watch it, the thing that I was a little bit surprised by was that even though there was a decent amount of car stunts and everything like that, so much of it wasn't that, you know, it was different kinds of stunts because it was still just a ton of action and fighting and stuff like that, but it wasn't as much.
Yeah.
The Fast and the Furious cars and everything.
Did you say you hadn't watched all of them yet?
So I have not watched all of them yet. I saw a couple since, because when we first talked, I had literally only seen the first one. I've seen a few since then.
Which is arguably the best one, in my opinion.
That's a big jump in what the series has become, going from Fast and Furious 1 to Hobbs and Shaw. That completely feels like different universes. But
those are I mean, just even Fast 1 to like Fast 7, that's still super different. But anyways, I think it's enough to be a standalone film, like Casey said, but there's enough that you know. I mean, if you didn't know that it was the Fast and the Furious universe, it wouldn't necessarily be, oh, this is the Fast and the Furious, but there's enough that it does relate it back to it.
Yeah.
So you can see where its roots are.
And in my opinion, that's the biggest problem that I had with it, is I wanted it to feel more like Fast and the Furious because I had the Fast and the Furious name on it. So I wanted more car stunts, more practical effects, more Vin Diesel, and I didn't get exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
I knew Vin Diesel wasn't going to be in this, but I'm so used to what Fast and the Furious is, and when I saw it was Fast and Furious Presents, I wanted that comfort food of what Fast and Furious has become, and it was close enough that like I enjoyed this movie. It was a lot of fun, but it wasn't nearly my favorite in the franchise.
I was just irked by that the name was not just Hobbs and Shaw. The real name of the movie is Fast and the Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw.
That's why I had to read it all out like that, because that's crazy. All they're doing is essentially trying to get a fan base over to an original film, an idea. And they're taking characters from those films, right? Because they had, like you kind of related earlier, good chemistry in a scene, like 15 minutes of footage or whatever. This was not a Fast and the Furious film. And I will stand behind that till the day I stop breathing, because I loved some of it, but I also was like, this is not what I expected.
Yeah.
I got, like, right, okay, so when you go into the theater for a Fast and the Furious film now, since it's involved into this, right, you're expecting cars, you're expecting some ladies here and there, over-the-top stunts, and extended airport runways, and stupid one-liners. And we got some of those.
Which we did get a lot of stupid one-liners. Hobbs is king of stupid one-liners.
It's because he spends too much time in the gym, and he only knows like 6 real quotes where he's like, oh yeah, this is, I can't remember.
Yeah, he had one smart quote. I can't remember what it was.
The Nietzsche one.
Yeah.
I don't remember what exactly he was saying from
He's
Nietzsche.
like flexing. He's like flexing this and this.
Yeah, it points at his brain and his muscles.
I don't know about that. I think that's a really curious thing. With going into that, what did you think? What did you guys think about as far as introducing the characters and their lives, like, you know, in this film? How well
like the
did they
little side-by-side sequence?
How did they do that? How did you feel about that? Because
I thought it was cool. I really liked how it showed that it shows how different they are, but it also kind of alludes to you're kind of the same person, you know? Like, your lifestyles are completely different in the way you work out and the way you do these specific things, but really you're doing the same job. You're preparing for the same stuff. You have the potential of being a really good partnership, yet being so different from each other.
Well, that's part of why they hate each other so much, right? Because even though they are different people in some ways, they're so similar that they just butt heads. They're so... I mean, I think she even says it in part of the movie, Hattie does, about them like being alpha males and stuff. And so they're just butting heads so much like that. Before we get too much... Because I know we like to go and look at specific scenes in the movie. Can we do...
We should probably throw up that spoiler warning.
Spoilers.
I'm sorry, I thought I yelled spoilers earlier.
We've said it a few times.
It's okay. We just want to make sure that if you haven't seen this film, oh my gosh, if you haven't seen this film, stop listening right now and go see it. Or wait till DVD and then come back and listen to this podcast. But you should go see it in the theater, so maybe we can get a second one. That's how I'm feeling right now. Although it is its own standalone film, I want number 2.
Yeah. So here's the thing, is that you'll probably hear each one of us say a lot of things that we like, probably a lot of things that we dislike about the movie. I would say that all in all, it is what it's meant to be. A big summer Fast and the Furious flick with ridiculous stunts and crazy stuff like that. And so I will say that all in all, I enjoyed it. I liked watching it. There was someone who said it. I wrote it down. There was someone who said it really well. Sarah Mars, in one of the reviews I read, it said it is indefensibly dumb, but a lot of fun.
Yep.
And that's pretty much what it is.
And yeah, I honestly got bored halfway through it, but I was chuckling through the whole thing. I think there was a few too many fight scenes, a few too many action sequences that they could have just moved things along. This movie was 2 hours and I think 17 minutes.
Well, it was so crazy because it felt like it should have ended, right? At the base and everything.
There was two. I felt like there was a soft ending where I was ready to be out of there.
They built everything to there. They're like, okay, let's do this big heist of this place, and then after that happens, let's go to Samoa.
Happened. Yeah, and that was my biggest problem with it. Is like, I can only. This movie is proof that there's too much of a good thing. Bringing it back to your Community episode, remember the episode where Troy has his giant cookie? And he keeps eating that cookie, and he keeps eating that cookie, and he's like, I don't understand why I'm sick. What is happening? And then he puts it together. Too much of one thing, too much of a good thing is a bad thing. And that's my biggest problem with this movie. I love Jason Statham. He's one of my favorite action stars. I love watching him fight. I like Dwayne Johnson. I don't want to say I don't like him. I don't like him when he's the main character of movies. I love him as side characters. Him as Hobbs in the main Fast and the Furious franchise is perfectly used. He's there the perfect amount, and then everyone kind of builds each other up. He's great in this movie, but after a while, I can only handle so many dick measuring jokes before I'm like, I get it. You guys don't get along, and you're two alpha males, and you're button heads, and you just want to fight each other. I get it. Let's move on with the movie. Let's move on with these action scenes. There is about 11 action sequences in this. I wrote them all out. Brixton versus Hattie, Hobbs versus the tattoo parlor guys, Shaw versus the motel room, and on and on and on. There's so many action sequences, and they just keep trying to one-up themselves over and over and over and over. And by the end of it, I'm just like tired.
Yeah.
And when it gets to the best part, which in my opinion is the end, when it starts to actually feel like a Fast and the Furious movie because they're in their cars, they have the big helicopter chase. I don't want to get into that part yet. By the time I get there, I'm just so physically exhausted from the movie, and I'm just so tired of the bickering between the two. I'm just like, let's just wrap this up and move on to something different.
I felt the exact same way. There was one point where I looked at my phone, and so right when you go into a movie, right, they're like, it starts at 150. Technically, it started at 210 because of all the crap that they make you watch. And the movie starts technically at 210, and at 2:45, I was like, this movie has only been going on for 35 minutes. And I know that sounds kind of like a real big, like a harsh thing, but same type of thing. I got really tired. So I'm a fan of Jason Statham, and I love a lot of his previous work, like The Transporter, right? The Bank Job, Crank, and all of those type of things, because he's always essentially played the same character, right? And with this, it's not really any different. And then you have The Rock, who kind of went from Disney football, so he went from WWE wrestler to Disney football player to now where he's like playing as many badasses as he can, and kind of he's doing well at it. But putting them together was fun for the 5 minutes they were together on screen previously. And
it was
2 hours.
Probably one of the best parts of Fast and Furious 7 was that scene of them breaking out of the prison.
Yeah.
It was so good.
It was. But I cannot handle that much alpha male. I felt like, this is nothing against anyone, right? But I felt like I had sat between two guys who had just taken a ton of pre-workout, and I was listening to them talk about how much they could lift the entire time. And I was over it. That's really how I feel. That's the harshest part about it. Like you said, two alphas going too hard.
I think it's fun, and there's some comedy banter that I enjoyed. But like you guys said, it's just so much. It's the entire movie, and I get that that's their whole relationship, and that's basically what this relationship movie is based off of, how much they hate each other. But just even during the large action sequence, they stop to throw shade at each other all the time,
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they don't really start cooperating really until like the last 15 minutes.
Which that's like the point of the movie, right? Is like they hate each other, and then they have to come together and have each other's back in the end.
I get it, but
and then they still hate each other.
Couldn't we have been better friends sooner in this movie? Like,
couldn't we have cut 15 minutes off of this movie just from removing them bickering, measuring their dicks, like you said before?
Well, like raising an eyebrow, looking at each other like, "Oh, you can't do that. Let me flex this." I don't know. Sorry, I'm going to get off my flexing horse here. But really, is there anything else we want to talk about with this?
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm kind of going off on it. I feel like I'm going to just poison the whole episode.
So I have a little thing that I have prepared, which I feel like, I mean, we'll go through and we'll do specific scenes, but I have a couple of things that I wrote down that I just wanted to say. If you have watched it because, or you don't care about watching it, please, number one, see it. And then if you're going to see it again, just remember for a couple of things that I'll say, these are the things that you should make sure not to pay attention or think too much about if you go and see Hobbs and Shaw. If you want to have an enjoyable experience, don't think about these things. But I was taught to be polite, so whenever you give criticism, you're supposed to do it like an Oreo comment. Have you guys heard that? Where it's like
one good thing.
You give one good thing, and then you say criticism, and then you give another good thing. I'm going to do that, except for it's like a super mega ultra stuffed Oreo.
This is the perfect movie to do it with, too. Because, like you said, it was a lot of fun in the end. It just, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so here's a good thing. Ready? They have a little bit of depth and crossing within the story, aka Shaw says, you can't solve all your problems by driving through a wall, and later Hobbs literally does that. He solves problems by driving a huge truck through a wall. So I thought I like that intricacy in the story. And then here's the mega ultra stuff in the middle. Bad things to not pay attention to if you want to enjoy Hobbs and Shaw. Ready? No real explanation as to why the disease would spread and cause worldwide catastrophe if she was alive after the 48 hours. It's very Hollywood-esque. Just there's a catastrophe, there's a time limit, it involves the main characters, blah, blah, blah. Jason Statham and Vanessa Kirby are supposed to be siblings about the same age, even though they are born 21 years apart, the actors. Mm-hmm. Try not to laugh at the serious part when a character literally says, I hacked the mainframe.
How 1990s.
The self-driving motorcycle is cool, and I get it's Fast and Furious, but it's just like so completely unexplained and ridiculous. I looked up a couple things, and there's some people who are like, oh, they're pretty close with some, not like that, but they're like with some self-balancing motorcycles. But still, though, they just don't even talk about it, and it does ridiculous things that make no sense. Like the motorcycle is changing and moving while Idris Elba's not even like doing anything.
Yeah, it basically has a mind of its own.
It's a transformer.
It does make the transformer noise. Did you notice that?
Yes, that was the thing. I was like, that's a transformer. Yeah. I'm looking for the Decepticon logo.
Is that what this is building up to? A Transformers
Transformers Fast and Furious crossover
movie? I would love that. Please make that happen.
I mean, I guess this one isn't as bad as when I wrote it down. Thousands of people following illegal and lethal orders from a voice who they have no clue who it is. Somehow in London and Los Angeles, it's the same time because the CIA agents call each other and they've both talked to Hobbs and Shaw at the same time when it's breakfast time. Gotta turn the page. How is Idris Elba able to see in slow motion exactly where, with how many pounds of force, and what angle the rock is going to hit him at? But when they crash into the building to steal Hattie, they shoot for 10 seconds, and it takes the rock. Sorry, I should probably use this character, Hobbs and Shaw. It takes them like 10 seconds to hide behind the table, and he doesn't hit them with his like supersonic eyes and stuff.
Exactly, that bothered me so bad.
And even when they hide behind the table, you see 2 times during the movie that Idris Elba can see through solid objects because he sees like the police car and he sees like a helicopter that's behind a building, but he can see it. He can't see where they are behind this table to shoot at them. Ridiculous. Anyways.
This is like the airing of grievances in Seinfeld. Get it all out and so we can focus on the good. This is like
get it all out and then we can talk about good stuff. Just the traveling alone in this movie would have taken 36 of their supposed 48 hours, which would leave only 12 hours for the action, which also makes no sense. And that's like best case scenario. That's like talking about like you arrive somewhere and action would immediately start, and then you're able to like jump on a plane or something right after it goes.
Nobody's economy flight plane to Moscow, Russia ever takes off on time.
Kevin Sharp. Whoa, my bad.
Kevin Sharp.
Wow. Pretty much. Kevin Hart shows up to add comedy and doesn't really. In my opinion.
I could not disagree more. I thought Kevin Hart in this was the best part of the movie.
No, I disagree. We'll talk about it. Why did you get? I mean, maybe just for future movies, possibly. Why did you get Isa Gonzalez to show up for like 5 minutes, have her like make out with Shaw, give us no backstory to that, and then just have her leave?
That was Darling, right, from Baby Driver?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just happens.
And she's in the trailers too, and
she's
barely in it.
She's a good actress. And so they pulled her. I'm like, oh, she's going to be part of like this whole final thing. She gives them the guns and then she leaves.
Yeah.
And she only shows up when Idris Elba shows up to like talk to her or something later.
But the faces that The Rock and the sister make, so great during that moment.
They're just like, what the heck?
Like classic sister look, like lifting one side lip, like, what?
When they invade the base and they're driving away, thousands, I mean, maybe not thousands, hundreds or thousands of people shoot at Shaw and Hattie as they're driving away in this buggy that has no frame and no one can hit them. They take up like 80% of this buggy with no frame, with no windows, and no one can hit them.
Those are stormtrooper, like the people who become stormtroopers.
It's the same actors. Also, this is my final one for the criticisms in this ginormous Oreo. Apparently in fake Samoa, aka Hawaii, the sun rises in 5 seconds because it literally goes like this. There's a 3-second shot of that flaming car flipping and there's tiki torches everywhere and it's like pitch black. Okay? There's a 5-second shot of Samoans, running to start fighting everyone after they disable their guns, and that's like it's half dark, half not. And then literally in the next shot, it's midday. It's like noon or 3 p.m. outside. That is no joke because I leaned over to Vince and I said something, I think, because I was like, what just happened? Because I knew they're coming at dawn.
On top of that, they have a 30-minute timer going through that entire sequence. So it was able to go from early morning to mid-afternoon in 30 minutes.
Yeah, so you can't cheat it. You can't just say like, oh, they just, they started fighting and it's a long fighting scene. No, they've got a timer.
And it was a moment where, for instance, they started the timer, it was still dark, and then there was a scene where they came over and they attacked the sister, and it was only 24 minutes or something like that. So it was really poor timed.
Yeah, there was just a lot of bad timing.
Poorly timed.
And finally, we get to the other side of the Oreo, good again.
Can I add one more to that list? Just real quick.
Throw it in.
Just one other thing that bothered me about Brixton. In the beginning of the movie, they pull up in that van, and Hattie is in there, and he punches the metal, and it bends the metal in, and he's punching it, showing he's basically got super strength.
He's Black Superman.
Later in the movie, he gets thrown through a city bus and gets up just fine. Mm-hmm. So he's got super strength, and he's basically invulnerable. He catches bullets with his hands, pretty much. Yeah. Yet, in the end of the movie, as soon as Hobbs and Shaw punch him, he's all of a sudden getting hurt. So that means that Hobbs and Shaw are more powerful than a moving car or a bullet. Just want to throw that in there.
Boom. I was thinking about this a little bit because it was bothering me during the movie, actually.
If you let it bother you, then you're in the wrong movie.
No, I know that. I know that. But no, I was wondering about that because I was like, wait a minute. But then I thought about it because, think about it, he's focusing on things, right? He's focusing on the moment. So he's probably has the ability to there's probably some nanobots in him where he's pushing them forward and they create some sort of shield, and when he's going through it and he's in crisis mode, for instance, his body is able to do something these nanobots or whatever this exo thing is. So it wasn't, I guess it wasn't bothering me. It was more I wonder how this is possible.
You're justifying it in your own
mind.
mind.
I was figuring it out. So yeah, I'm curious how that worked. But the thing is when Hobbs and Shaw were fighting him at the end, right? One of them was what did they call it? The Mick Jagger, right? And the other one was coming at it. So probably in that moment or in that sequence, it was because he was distracted that didn't work.
Okay, I buy that. And that's the best part of these movies is they've just become superheroes. Mm-hmm. That's what I love. I'm bringing up that scene from Fast 7 again where him and Hobbs and Shaw are breaking out of that prison. It was so much fun to see the Hulk, to see The Rock Hobbs Hulk out, rip off the cement chair, do curls, and then like he punches the metal wall and puts a big dent in it. Like I love that for his character. They just didn't play to it as much as or as well as they did in the Fast movies as this one. He never kind of establishes it. I don't know.
Was Dwayne Johnson as big in this movie as he has been in other Fast movies?
Not Fast 5. I watched a little thing of Fast 5 just barely. He's definitely put on some bulk since Fast 5.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the other end of the Oreo?
So the other end of the Oreo is, we already put out the spoiler alert, so Ryan Reynolds plays Deadpool playing CIA agent Locke.
And he's funny as heck.
And he is super funny. Talking about Game
Right.
of Thrones. He wrote it all himself, that whole part where he's talking about Game of Thrones and everything with Hobbs and his daughter. Ryan Reynolds wrote it. Super funny. I loved it. So a little bit like what you're talking about. This was like my little outro from the Oreo comment. There's a lot of good in this movie, and I liked it very much. And I left out a lot of like the stunts and everything because that's what like the Fast and the Furious movies are. The stunts and everything are part of the most ridiculous parts of the movie because it's just so improbable and something that even if it was possible that you'd have to take 100 times to maybe get right once, no matter how skilled you are. But that's what Fast and Furious is. So even the thing is that even leaving all of those out, there's still this ginormous like 3-foot tall Oreo next to me where all the middle is stuff that I just was like, what is happening?
But that creamy weirdness within the Oreo is what made it so outlandishly good at the same time. And like I said, I had a lot that I disliked about this movie, but also I could have bathed in all the bad moments of this movie and had a great time doing it.
So I have another question for you guys. What moment in the movie made you roll your eyes first?
First?
Yep. Because this is a movie full of eye rolling. They do some of the craziest, unbelievable stunts you'll ever see, and it just causes you to just be like, ugh, really? You know? And roll your eyes. What was that very first moment in the movie that made you roll your eyes?
The one I remember the most personally was when they jump out of that building, and he just like wraps the rope around his hand, and I was like, you're gonna get terrible rope burn. And that was
So bad. Oh my god.
but also at the same time they were launching those ropes down, so naturally they were falling with him,
Which was really cool.
but somehow he was also gaining on those people at the same time, and then he like drops. I was like, oh my gosh. But then like Shaw is just taking his time down the elevator, and they like bust it, and they was like do. Oh no. I was
so
like,
that was it.
What
It was
the
that first
freak?
big action sequence.
Yeah.
See, for me, there's like so little content sometimes to the movie that I get it all mixed up and I don't remember what exactly goes where. I just remember big action, big action, big action. But I think the first time where I think I literally chuckled and I was like, oh my gosh, was that one I mentioned before when the guy walks up and he's like, I hacked the mainframe. Because he's talking about when he like hacks the mainframe, like the news outlets and stuff, to put out a fake story about Hobbs and Shaw being bad, right? And he's like, I was able to hack the mainframe, and you're just like, that sounds such like a like something that you say. I hacked the mainframe.
Yeah.
I thought that. I thought that type of thing as well. I feel like this was a combination of the wildness of like an 80s movie with the terrible lines of a 90s movie, like action movies. Like,
That's an excellent way to describe
Yeah.
it.
it was a lot like, for instance, like Big Trouble in Little China meets some Tom Selleck film where he was an action star, but that was probably also in the 80s. I don't know. It was one of those things that was just weird.
That's a beautiful pull quote. Just by the way.
So my very first eye roll moment surprised me because I thought it was going to be like you guys, where it was going to be one of these big action set pieces, him jumping out of the window or something. It wasn't. It was something much smaller, and I don't know why it caused the reaction, but it did. So the beginning of the movie, they get their calls in, or they having to go out and they have to get information from somebody. And Hobbs goes to a tattoo parlor, and Shaw goes to this fancy hotel room, right? And they have it does a really good job showing the difference in their fighting styles and the difference in who they are, you know, where Hobbs goes in and he just blows through the door, walks through and does what he wants, and Shaw is more of the stealth secret agent type martial artist, right? I rolled my eyes so hard when Hobbs is walking through that club and he steals 2 shot glasses from somebody and dumps them both in his mouth at the same time and throws them down and keeps
he just chucks them behind him.
Yeah. And I rolled my eyes so hard there, just like, are you serious? Why did you do that? You're not that cool, Hobbs. I'm sorry.
Well, I thought that was kind of a weird thing. I thought that they were legitimately going clubbing. I was like, he's gonna show up, and he's just here to party because I think he's single, right? The character, and so I was like, oh, he's here to party. This is he's getting his pregame going, and he went in and tattooed "I love the police" on the forehead of the bad guy.
Yeah, it gets his information by torturing the guy, which is kind of messed up.
Yeah, I think that's
for a cop, right?
Isn't that against the code?
Ex-cop now, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I think I also, this might be now that I remember, my new big eye roll moment. If it wasn't that, it was when he was flirting with the little tattoo girl on the side.
Oh, yeah.
Because even, like, I get it, like, he's this big muscular dude, but I'm sure that you have, like, a personal connection to this guy still. You like work in this tattoo parlor. You probably know each other pretty well. You're probably friends.
She's probably spent hours and hours working on his tattoos.
Exactly. And then he's just like flirting with her, and she's like, "Oh, ha ha!" Like, doesn't even care that this guy's about to get tortured.
The terrible line from that moment is "nice tats."
Yeah.
Oh yeah, nice tats.
So that was my biggest eye rolling moment.
That's a good one.
And but like I said, the sequence is good. It shows the we talked a little bit about the intro sequence that kind of shows their lifestyles, how much they differ from each other, yet how much they're the same. Mm-hmm. And then the movie really goes into the family aspect. We have that scene where Hobbs is sitting around with his daughter in the diner, and that's what Fast and the Furious is. And that's what's cool about this is they stuck to the theme of family. That's how they're able to keep this as a Fast and the Furious movie, is they took their characters, they went off on their own adventure, yet the film is still in the end about family. Hobbs goes to Samoa at the end. He finally introduces his daughter to his extended family. He makes amends because he had this big problem with his family going on. Shaw, in the meantime, is dealing with his mother in prison. His sister hates him because of his past, these terrible things that he's done in his past, and they have to make amends as well. And so I think that is really cool. Is like, even if we do these spin-offs, that still is true to the heart of Fast and the Furious, which is La Familia.
La Familia. That was definitely my favorite shot that I knew was going to be there. Like, that was... there was no surprise. The second that she said it, I knew it was going to happen, but I still was like heartwarmed when at the end the mom comes and she walks through the door and both Shaw and Hattie are sitting there, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you knew the second that she said that was going to be like the end of the movie, that she was going to see them there, but it was still heartwarming to see, and it was nice. Mm-hmm.
I thought that was actually something that was a really cool, same type of thing, really cool theme that kept with the Fast format, but I feel like there was a lull in it in a way too. Like, obviously, like, he's working the whole time to save his sister, right? But you kind of get that warm fuzzies. Then it's like, oh, and this is my sister. Get off her in that way. And then it's like they're just trying to save the sister, and like you get those little sentimental moments, like those little throwbacks where like the Mick Jagger and this type of thing, which is cool. But maybe I'm just feeling jaded because I think I went in with more of this idea that it was going to be more of a Fast and the Furious film a little bit. But I did like the callback to Samoa, especially my favorite part of that is when the mom throws a chanela at her, like the flip-flop.
The chancla?
Yeah, the chancla.
The chancla?
Yeah. She's just
I mean, I guess that's not how a Samoan mom would say it.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know what it would be.
Yeah. But I love that.
But it's that same mom thing.
Yeah. I loved it. I thought that was really great. And I thought also, like, the reuniting, like, working through the stuff and explaining it was really well done as well. Because it's not, like... And also, one thing that I thought was really cool is Hobbs is kind of narrating a lot of the things in here. Like, he goes and is, like, telling a story. So we're able to keep up with what happened in a few different places, which I thought was really nice. That he had that storytelling in so we could fill in the gaps. Mm-hmm. No, really, but I thought that was good.
Sometimes
the family theme was good.
Sometimes, so I definitely love the family theme. Agreed that it kept, along with the car stunts that they did, it kept it with its roots enough to be its own movie, but kept it with its roots. I like sort of like Casey said, when he was able to narrate a little bit and give us some of that backstory. I think it's sort of a crutch that movies use that I a lot of times also dislike. It wasn't as bad with this one where it's like, oh no, what happened? And then main character launches into a monologue so that we can understand the story. It was pretty weird though for me when they showed up in Samoa, and I forget his name, Cliff Curtis shows up, and he's what's his name, Jonah or Jorah?
Okay. In
Jonah?
Walking Dead, that guy.
Yeah, in Fear the Walking Dead, because he looks so different. Because in The Walking Dead, he's like this tall, skinny guy, not like bones, but he's like in there he's like a Samoan. He's like this big dude. And in the Fear the Walking Dead, he doesn't have a beard. He doesn't have long hair. I was so taken aback. Like, it stopped me in my tracks when I saw him as Jonah. I was so surprised. I was like, what the heck is happening?
So another little fun fact about, since we're talking about that section of the movie, there's also a WWE star in that scene.
Roman Reigns.
You know?
Only from this.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, maybe I
don't
watch
WWE,
a little
so.
WWE in the side.
Well, apparently he pulls some of his signature moves during the fight scene. Did you notice them?
Yeah, he did some of those like real legit WWE fight scenes in there. There's a segment where they're fighting and actually The Rock and him are like tag team wrestling, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And another thing that's also another cool call out towards Roman Reigns, this was actually my spoiler, is that The Rock and Roman Reigns are cousins.
Oh, cool.
So
So it's real family there.
It's a real family thing. And actually, The Rock's dad was in the wrestling industry as well. That's where The Rock came in. And then that's how that family is involved in wrestling. Weird. I know that, but
No.
cheers.
I know a lot of people still into wrestling. If Michael was here, he could have talked our ear off.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I could have a discussion with him.
I just thought that was a really cool, a little touch, is that he's bringing in his apparently real family, and I was going to say his wrestling family into the movie too. Yeah. And celebrating his culture. Like, he's half Samoan, half black, and so that's really cool that they were able to show his history, his culture in one of these movies. I don't think we've had that in any of The Rock's movies before this. So
I'm sad that they couldn't actually film it in Samoa, though.
yeah,
that's kind of sad.
Where was it, in like
It's Hawaii.
Kauai or something like that?
I don't remember
One
the
of the
exact
islands?
location. I just remember it was in Hawaii.
All right, so looking into the action in this film, right? The whole time we're seeing essentially 3 super soldiers, one that's a little more super than the rest of them, who declares himself Black Superman, right?
Oh, I thought you were talking about Hobbs Shaw and Hattie, and I was like, which one's better?
Oh, well, okay, sorry. If we're talking...
Hattie's, she's superhuman in there too.
I should probably correct that statement. She's probably more badass than we give her credit for.
Vanessa Kirby belongs. She's an action hero. She is so good in this. I loved her. She's beautiful, and she held her own with these guys. I was really impressed.
Yeah, I mean, we had that thing that we used to do, and I took like a template from our old episodes to write out some of my thoughts. And in the who stood out section, I put Vanessa Kirby, because even though Jason Statham and The Rock, they're like superstars, you know, she, like you said, she held their own, and she was up there, and she was really intriguing to me the whole time. So super kudos to her.
Yeah, what I think is really cool about it too is every major the 4 main characters right in this film, they all would be able to hold their own. Like, for instance, if they were to have like a side story, like what is going on, because I'm really curious about like how the heck Idris Elba's Brixton, like what happened to him. Like, he got shot at some point, right? But what's the story there more?
So all we got from the movie was that he got approached by this secret government, police, whatever group.
The anonymous group
Who said that the human race is killing themselves. We need to evolve.
Fix it. Evolve before they kill themselves.
And so Brixton, which is Idris Elba's character, he decided to join the team. And then this anonymous group said, we want Shaw to be a part of this as well. And so Brixton goes, he offers it to Shaw, who turns him down. And so the anonymous group says, you have to kill him. He knows too much now. So he goes in, he tries to kill Shaw, and Shaw gets the best of him. It ends up saying 2 in the chest, 1 in the head, or something like that. And then that's all we know, is somehow they have the technology to rebuild him from that.
That's so crazy to me. I wonder if like the shot paralyzed him. Also, maybe this group is a group that became the group in I Am Mother, who decided that cyborgs out, full robots in.
Very well could.
Do you guys? It's true.
Sorry, I'm just making connections here. The dendrites in my brain are going
We got
crazy.
Transformers Fast and the Furious. We got I Am Mother Fast and the Furious.
We're just going to combine them all.
We're just going to keep on pulling it out as it goes along. Do you guys think that Brixton's gone? I mean, they power him down and he falls into the ocean, but...
I think he could be revived because I think pretty much like when he had his back opened up, right? He had some like tissue and sinew and all that kind of crap, right? But he's pretty much a machine with a bag of skin over him. So what if they just power him up in the middle of the ocean and he becomes like he boards a ship, takes over, and steals a super weapon?
I mean, he's Black Superman, right?
And he's so good. I want him in everything.
And I love Idris Elba, and I think that he could be a really great star of this side series. Like,
That's
to
what I was
keep
gonna
Hobbs and
say.
Shaw going, I think that Idris Elba is a big part of it, and keeping him in it would be a good thing.
If they follow the Fast and the Furious formula, he will be the good guy and join the team in the next one. So
That's how it all works.
But
We'll see.
How will he be able to get powered up and down because someone else holds his mind in their hands?
Well, that's like the whole thing, is that they're going to have to eventually confront this voice, whoever it is that Hobbs knows. You know, it's going to be a reunion, they said, or whatever. So
Yeah.
they're going to have to confront them. So maybe Idris Elba's not in the next one when they confront these big people, but then they take over their base or something, and then they get the formulas and the computers, and they're like, oh, we can get Brixton back or something. I don't know.
they can find a way. That's
Anyways.
the point, is they can find a way to bring him back if they really want to. And I would love it if they did.
They've got the data that they can manipulate it, you know?
We should probably talk a little bit more about the movie and less about all these other scenarios that we think will
these
happen.
scenarios are what make fandom great.
so
Making
much
fandom
fun
great
to talk
again right now.
This is why it's great to talk about the movie, and this is why the movie's so enjoyable, is because not even just from the Fast and the Furious, but that it leaves so much open to what we think is going to happen in the future with it and how fun it was. And we'll talk about the action sequences and everything here, and that's what's good and fun about this movie, and that's why overall I liked it.
I love that I was like, these are the great action films, and we got there. The great action sequences, and we got there. So this means that actually, although I've been a hater on this film, there's a lot more that's made me think about, which I'm kind of happy about.
So what's your favorite action sequence in the movie?
I like the car chase. Like the chase when
Through
he's
London?
driving through London, where he's driving the McLaren. He lifts the blade on the back of the car, goes under, does the classic like throwback to the first Fast and Furious where it goes under the semi, and Idris Elba's Transformer motorcycle just.
Well, yeah,
Beautiful.
I liked that shot. I think that was my favorite like shot stunt of the movie, was when, because the one car goes under the two semi trucks, right, and it's cool, whatever. But then when Idris Elba's coming up to it, he like, this is like the most ridiculous part of the self-driving motorcycle. It makes no sense, but it was cool. He like goes behind the motorcycle. I'm like pulling away because I'm doing it here when we're recording it. He like goes behind the motorcycle and turns it as it's going, and he goes under it as well while his feet are like skidding on the ground.
Yeah.
I liked that like shot. That was my favorite like single moment.
Yeah, I think that whole sequence of everything that goes on, the series of events there, The Rock grabbing someone whilst driving like 40 miles an hour down the street and holding him and then bashing him into a wall and all that kind of stuff.
Ooh, that was good.
That whole I like that. That was my favorite part. I know it was very early on in the film, I feel like, but it was my favorite by far.
Oh, it was so good.
Because it seemed, and I know it was all impractical, but it seemed the most realistic thing to happen in this whole thing to me.
So, little Easter eggs for that. That McLaren goes for $400,000. It's a super expensive car.
Ooh, pocket change.
It is British made, and when they were drawing out the storyboards, they drew the car as the McLaren, and I just spaced his name. Jason Statham. Sorry, Jason Statham looked at the storyboards and he saw the McLaren in there, and he's like, "You drew the McLaren. We have to get the McLaren. It's done. Get me in that car," because and it fits the character perfectly. But he was diehard about getting that.
Yeah.
And they got it for him.
I think that would be like my favorite overall action sequence, the whole car chase through London. Like you mentioned, when he picks up the guy just out the window and slams against the wall. Also super cool. That is also a part when they like run down where The Rock, he's sliding down the ropes, right? Because it's right after they capture Hattie. And because even though it's ridiculous, he's sliding down the ropes and then he just lets go and he falls on top and he breaks of different people. Yeah, I had something else that I was thinking about, but I forgot. So keep going.
Going to the fight scene too, and I want to bring this one up. So you know that nerdy scientist guy who created the nanobots, and then he created the device to pull the nanobots. I loved the part where they're in the factory and he finally stands up for himself with a flamethrower. Can we talk about that?
It was very
guy gets his...
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It made me think of that, where he just comes through with the flamethrower, and it's like, yeah.
The little guy gets his moment. They never get their moments.
Yeah, but it was very short-lived.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
See, I liked.
I'm so terrible. I'm sorry.
That was pretty good though. Let's be real.
I liked everything leading up to that moment in the movie, in that sequence. I'd agree with you. The best action sequence is probably that chase scene with the McLaren and the motorcycle. I really liked the stuff in Russia or Ukraine, wherever it was.
Yeah, Ukraine.
The Ukraine. I really liked everything leading up to the chase scene at the end, where we talked about a little bit about the buggy and the fight on the back of the car with Idris Elba. I didn't really love that stuff, but everything leading up to the moment where they get caught, where he's fighting in the hallways and they're expecting to get caught, and it shows Hattie kind of what she's capable of. I thought that was all really well done. But my favorite fight scene, well, I don't know if it's my favorite, but one of my favorite fight scenes is actually the fight between Hattie and The Rock, Hattie and Hobbs, where they first come in contact with each other, and he recognizes her, and she starts fighting him, and he's just kind of, he's so huge, and she's doing everything she can to.
Oh yeah,
you remember the fight?
I forgot about that. Yeah,
she's pulling out all the moves, and she's getting her hits in and knocking him down, and just really proving what she's capable of. And she actually gets him down on the ground and wraps her leg around him, and she's choking him out. And Hobbs is just finally like, okay, this is enough of this. And he just gets up and he just picks her up and lifts her above his head. And he's like, we're done. We're going to talk now for a minute.
That also shows you just the sheer strength of Hobbs. He is a freaking horse. He's a beast. And I love that scene as well. I think that something that was really cool to point out with that fight scene too is once they get up into the building where he's interrogating her, right? He describes her fighting style. And he talks about, he's like, you weren't fighting to commit a crime or kill, right? He's like, you were fighting to get away. And then we see later in the film more of her fighting to cause damage and to win.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool to see all the fighting, probably not all the fighting styles, but a different variety of fighting styles that you normally see. Because a lot of characters, like Hobbs has one fighting style, which is to Hobbs smash.
Yep. Hulk it out.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, though, is that even though that is his style and that's his main advantage, is that you see when he talks to her that he does have at least a bit of that tactical, analytical thinking, right? Is that he knows exactly how she's fighting. And even though he knows it because of their physical altercation, you see that he's not 100% muscle and no brains.
I would like to see Hattie and Hobbs go at it to kill each other, because both, like you said, both of them were holding back in that moment.
That'd be pretty cool.
My other favorite Hattie scene. Sorry, did you have something?
No, I thought of a different one. I'll do it after you.
My other favorite Hattie scene was just the beginning sequence when Brixton first shows up and she's getting the virus and her whole team gets taken out. I just thought that whole scene was cool, and Hattie just continues to prove that she belongs in the series, and she just shows how smart she is, she shows how capable she is, and she's just great. I really like that first one where Brixton shows it. He's just like, bad guy.
Who are you? Bad guy.
Well, I thought that was actually another thing that I wrote down. The characters are very self-aware is what's kind of cool, is they use that, I don't know if you want to call it confidence or machismo type behavior to kind of be like bad guy type thing. And and then you have The Rock, who's like, what does he say when he comes in and he breaks into the tattoo parlor? He has a one-liner that's just really terrible. And then Jason Statham's character Shaw, he's just kind of like champagne nightmare or something like that, right? Those kind of
he says, Luke Hobbs says, I'm what you call it. He says, I'm what you call an ice cold can of whoop ass.
Yeah. But I thought that was kind of cool, where they make these characters very self-aware of their abilities, right? And using the champagne versus the ice cold can of whoop ass is kind of showing also their distinct styles and kind of their whole thing. So it's a good forecasting and showing of who they really are. And I thought that was really cool as well.
Yeah, it's good foreshadowing sort of for the rest of the movie, because he says that even later. Shaw, he talks about the champagne, the one that you said before.
Yeah, I don't have it off the top of my head.
It's near the end. It's when he's fighting in Samoa. So the one I was thinking about, the one action scene that I liked, and for me a little bit, there were some times where the jokes weren't landing, but for most of it I thought it was pretty funny, was when they pick the doors and they go in and they're in like that weird sort of garage place, and The Rock's got the one big guy who's like a foot taller than him, and Shaw's got all of the other people that he fights like all at the same time. And even though he's fighting all these people, he's like still so relaxed that he's like looking, he's like, hey, watch this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do something crazy, watch this. I liked the humor aspect, but also was a little disappointed in Hobbs' part of that fight, because this guy walks up and he has like this 3-foot wrench, and he's like a foot and a half taller than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And you're like, this is crazy, because even though obviously Hobbs is going to be more skilled and probably still even more strong, this is going to be a heck of a fight. And then it was just very Indiana Jones-esque, where he just punches him in the face and the guy's out, right? Mm-hmm. And so I liked it because it was funny, and it reminded me of Indiana Jones, but it was also like, I was pretty excited to see that, you know. And then it was pretty funny a lot of times to see the two going up against each other, or just having Hobbs in the one side like yawning while he's doing the other one while the guy fights. And then I guess the part that didn't landed for me was the whole part where you had to try a million different people to unlock that door.
Everybody.
It was just so long. It was like 3 minutes or something of him just putting different people against. And I was like, it was funny. But maybe you could have just shown him do that a couple times and then showed a ton of bodies and have him do one instead of like so long. But I liked that part. It was funny and pretty good action. Pretty good like close-up fighting, because they're in those tight hallways.
Yeah. And then the entire scene in Samoa, I thought was great. Like I said, it started feeling more like Fast and the Furious with the car train and flipping the NOS to keep the helicopter on the ground instead of pulling him off the cliff.
Yeah.
What do you call it? Moonshine?
The moonshine.
The moonshine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I liked that part more than, because I mean the whole hand-to-hand combat was cool, and it was cool that it was to the Samoan roots, where for some reason with these weird like nanochip weapons they were able to disable them so that it was hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, it's cool because it's like future versus the past, you know.
Exactly.
They pull out their weapons, their antiques. They shut off all of their futuristic tech, so they have to go hand to hand, and it's our future versus our past, and it's this cool fight. And when they do, is it called the haka? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
That was so cool. That put me up so much. I was just like seeing them do this thing, and I
was super down for the haka, because I love the haka, having been, you know, a pretty decent-ish fan of BYU football. You know, my whole life. They have for many years done the haka. They haven't done it as much recently, but they did it before football games, and so we learned all about it when we were kids and stuff, because I would watch it. And so I was super pumped when that happened. I love, one of probably my favorite jokes of the movie is they have one of those one-liners where it goes to Hobbs right before all of that goes down, and he's like, but they've got all these weapons, like we don't have any weapons. And Hobbs is like, oh, we've got weapons. And so it's super cheesy. But then they open that locker and it's just all this stuff. He's like, Mama, where are all the guns? We got rid of them. And
another moment that would have been great if it wasn't shown in the trailer. They showed too much in the trailer for this one, but that's besides the point.
They showed a lot of cards. There were some parts where I was like, yeah, it sort of feels like Fast and the Furious, but it was too long, and just I don't know if what's happening was in the scenes where they were getting ready. It showed a lot of stuff about them getting ready, which was cool. But then there were some times where there were like 4 different shots of just like circling around Hobbs and Shaw as they were talking, and you couldn't even hear what they were saying.
Yeah.
It's just like circle around, and then, oh, it's from a higher angle, and then, oh, it's a little bit closer, but you still can't hear what they're saying, and there's just music playing.
That confused
So
me.
unnecessary.
So just another quick little fun fact. They actually brought in a helicopter for that scene when they're driving through the no man's land.
Oh, nice.
And this was something I had to really search for some fun facts for this one, but I was watching some YouTube video that was done by like ET or something like that, and they just showed behind the scenes before all the changes were made, and one of the scenes was the helicopter flying and all the cars coming and colliding, like coming into the train. So they actually brought in the cars. They did more practical effects than I realized. I thought a lot more of this was CGI than it is.
Well,
there's a lot of
for
CGI.
$200 million.
Yes. And then the other thing is they had 183 stunt performers on this movie.
What?
Mm-hmm. And a lot of the actors, well, all the actors did the majority of their own stunts. The Rock did his, I mean, there's the big stuff they couldn't do, of course, but all the fight scenes were done by the actors, well, as much as they could, which is just, it's really cool. Like, that you can actually see these characters doing these big action sequences.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, you got all these big, like, Samoan guys, like, running
who
and
have
fighting.
a background in WWE who can do these things, you know?
Exactly. And so they're all going and they're fighting against these other tactical sorts. So I think that's pretty cool that you can, because then you can see them because, I mean, otherwise a stunt actor would just have to be someone who's, like, exactly like them. So instead of, like, getting a stunt actor to do that, just like, hey, like, you guys are going to fight like this.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, one other thing. David Leitch, the director, he actually started as a stuntman. And in one of the interviews with Jason Statham, he said that Jason Statham said that he actually threw David Leitch through a window in a past movie that they were in together. That's
awesome.
where he's a director.
Didn't David Leitch do Deadpool?
Deadpool 2.
Right.
Yes.
Right,
Which explains why Ryan Reynolds is in it. And that other guy who's the other CIA agent, he was in Deadpool 2 as well.
Yeah.
Wasn't he the dad with the mustache?
Yeah. And then there was someone else I can't remember off the top of my head who was in it too. The best fight scene in the entire movie was the ending. I really liked Hobbs and Shaw finally teaming up with each other, getting over their machismo, whatever you want to call it, working together, and the line is like, I'll take a punch for you. I got your back, you know?
Oh, yeah. That was, like, the whole thing is that he was so calculated that you couldn't, like, take him, right? Like, one-on-one. So it was like the one guy has to take the punch.
I'll go take the punch.
While the other wrecks him from behind or something.
And then they do that cool, like, slow motion action sequences going through.
With the rain bouncing off the face.
And Jason Statham does the coolest move where he just elbows him across the...
yeah, that was a good one. I like that one.
That was like a throwback to the Transporter series.
Just like,
he uses his elbows in a couple scenes of that.
Does he?
This is like it's like the cheesiest, like, I mean, I wouldn't say it's the cheesiest action, but it's just like, oh yeah, like we're gonna do all these things, and it's slow-mo with the rain, but that's also, it's Fast and the Furious, just this fighting.
It's what I want.
It is what we wanted walking into this movie. I loved it as well. I mean, the waterfall, it was great.
It was great. I thought the way that they ended that scene, like that movie, it was great. I loved that last fighting sequence personally. It got to the point where I was like, yeah, this is what I came for.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
So I would agree that just like the whole last part was what we came for. And so even though the movie felt like it had a soft ending and then the real ending was what we were looking for, because we had that last fight sequence, but also what we were looking for as far as the Fast and the Furious part with the cars, we got that with, you know, when they were hitting the moonshine. We talked about it a little bit, but that was like my favorite part, even though it's just incredibly ridiculous and all of these things happening actually like on the first time. There was no way it would happen, but it was so cool. And it's so Fast and the Furious-esque, right? Where they got them all and the one guy has like the hooks on the back that he just rams into the car so fast that it goes under and hooks on the car.
Another one of my eye rolling moments.
Just so crazy. But I mean, that's like the Fast and the Furious that you're so used to, right? And so they're all doing it so it can stay on the ground. And then when they drive through that part where they had buried all the things and it's all blowing up all around them.
Shooting up the
explosions everywhere.
I thought that those were pretty clever. They just turned big old barrels upside down. I love that. That was a big eye roll for me, but it felt the truest to the Fast and the Furious family to me as well. Mm-hmm. But I wish that we had just a little bit more of that. It felt like, here's how I felt. Okay, so you go to the factory, right? It felt like, who was it, Michael Bay? It felt like Michael Bay had control of that segment. And then when the bad guys are pulling up to their little, like, old factory in Samoa, Michael Bay had control of that part. And then he was done. He was like, I'm here for 45 minutes. I'm out.
Yeah.
But I thought it was well designed. Like, the idea of it comes in and it really brought back that Furious family type vibe that you get at the end before, you know, everything breaks apart.
Talking about the characters Hobbs and Shaw, are you guys team Hobbs or are you team Shaw?
For what? That's such a
You have to
vague
choose a
question.
side.
At the end of
they
this-
don't get along, so you have to choose a side. Are you Team Hobbs or are you Team Shaw?
At the end of this film, I would choose Team Shaw.
And why?
This is swagger, man, the whole time. And I like to think things through in a similar way as well. Like I feel like I'm very calculated in some things, right? I would never say I'm the most detail-oriented person in the world, but when I'm making I make planned moves. I'm a schemer. I'm not like the Joker.
Yikes.
But I felt, and I'm not like big into beating and destroying things, because then I have to clean it up because no one cleans up after me but myself. So I don't know. And tidiness is nice, and dapperness, and just Jason Statham, to me, I've had a longer personal connection to him in the way of I've watched his films more and longer. So
How about you, Josh?
So I would say, thinking a little bit about it, that if it's like who we are, sort of, I would say that I'm more like Shaw. But when you said Team Hobbs or Team Shaw, in my mind, I don't know why, I immediately went to Team Hobbs. Because, I mean, I like The Rock or whatever, but maybe it's just more of what I envy, because I am by zero means a muscular dude. And so I think that it would be pretty freaking cool to just have like that brute strength to do some stuff like that. So I would like to have that, but I don't. So maybe it's because I envy it that I'm like Team Hobbs, yeah. But I'm a lot more like Shaw. I think I am. Like Casey said, he wasn't, but I think he is a little bit. I'm pretty detail oriented and just like, you know, the more calculated bits of it. I think I'm more like him, but I envy Hobbs more.
I am also Team Shaw. I love him. I think he's so much fun to watch. Jason Statham is awesome. He's got a freaking awesome car that he cruises around in.
A McLaren.
He's classy.
Ooh.
He gets stuff done. He's the secret agent. I just think he's so cool. But Casey, since you're Team Shaw,
Yeah.
can you forgive him for what he's done in his past? Killing Han.
No. Not at freaking all, to be honest with you. Because that was the first time I ever choked up in the Fast and the Furious movie. I'm going to cry a little bit right now because I hadn't thought about that for a minute. Oh, man. Yeah,
there's a line in the movie where he straight up says, like, I have things in my past I need to make up for. Mm-hmm. And he's directly referencing, I mean they've cleared his name pretty much throughout the movie. That's kind of the purpose of this movie, was to give Hobbs a little bit more of a backstory, a little bit more of show his family, but also to I guess the word retcon Shaw's storyline from being the bad guy to being the guy who was framed and does bad things, but that still doesn't change the fact he killed a part of the Fast and the Furious family. One of the
earliest.
Yeah, one of the characters that's the most loved in the fan base.
I have to. Oh man, that just reminded me of. That's how I feel about that. No, what I think is kind of cool though is this series does show the redeeming features of humanity, which is really cool. If you really think about it, this is showing us we have a justice system that a lot of people have a lot of gripes and hates against, right? Like you go and you get 3 squares a day and a lot of people come out the exact same as they went in. And it's because when they go back to like a family or a group or relationships, that is what led them there. And this kind of shows a transformation of a group of people, right? Like you start out with the Fast and the Furious, the original film, like, right, Dominic Toretto, and those guys are just like a bunch of street hooligans who commit petty theft quite a bit. And I wouldn't say it's petty theft, but they pull off some pretty sweet crime. And then you kind of see them start molding into that real purpose, which is to make family life better, and they'll do anything for it. And that's what you see in Hobbs and Shaw a little bit that I really enjoyed, was that they were able to put aside their disagreements to save this one person and humanity on the side, right? And you see kind of that molding. And I guess this is kind of where we get into something I talked about earlier too, is it took them the whole damn show except for the last 15 minutes to get along, and then they didn't even get along in the end, because that's their characters though, is because they're so different, right? But it shows that we as a group of people, we can change our stripes, right? You can, follow your feet back home, if that makes sense. Follow the stars back home or whatever. But Yeah, I think that was really cool. I do not forgive Jason Statham or Shaw for killing Han. He can go lick a hoof of a horse for all I care. But yeah, other than that, I really am still Team Shaw.
Did you see Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift?
Tokyo Drift, yeah, I saw.
Did you see what happened to Shaw? Yeah. Or what happened to Han later?
Yeah, I saw it as well.
How do you feel?
So I feel like it's the same. It's sort of a weird situation that they put us in, but that's also the beauty of film, is that if it were a real person, like if you were actual legit friends with Han in real life, I don't think that you could ever forgive him no matter what he did, because even though he goes and saves the world, you're like, this just wasn't some accidental thing, he kills him, right? It's like a weird situation where they just sort of tell us, like, ignore it, and they're like, it happened, but we're trying to make amends, but also just like, don't look at it, because you can't forgive him, but then again, he's part of the story and he does good things and he does stuff that's likable. So,
and he's gonna have to work hard for me to forgive him, because as much as I love Shaw, like, I'm Team Shaw over Hobbs, I still have a problem with that. Like, he did a real messed up thing. He killed a part of the family, and they did the best they can in the last Fast and the Furious 7 or the last Fast and Furious movie to make us forgive him. It showed Dom actually, like, inviting him to the barbecue. He saved his child. He's done all he can for Dom. But I think that this is the best. If we're going to keep using Shaw, this is the best way to use him. I don't think that he could ever become a part of the Fast and Furious family, but him and Hobbs can run off and do their little side adventures, and they can do their thing. But I don't forgive him enough to let him join the family.
They're doing, like, opposite of the MCU. They started all together, and then they work outwards. I mean, they introduce characters along the way, right? But then they work outwards. Everyone will eventually have their own little series with who they introduce. They'll just come in and then bring them off to the side.
What do you guys think? If you were to recommend this to a friend, how would you recommend it to them?
I would say, sort of like, I wouldn't say everything I said before. I would just say, go in knowing that it's Fast and Furious movies. Don't, like, nitpick it. Don't go in like a critical view. Just go in, enjoy it, love the craziness, and just embrace the fun part of it, because that's how you'll like it. Those are the things that we like about it, how fun it is and how crazy it is and all the stunts and everything. So just go in wanting to enjoy those parts of it and not look at it critically.
Yeah. I would say go watch Fast 5. Yeah. I like this movie, but I will never watch it again. Fast and Furious 5, 6, 7. I won't watch them all the time, but they're rewatchable. This one, it was too long. There's not enough that is drawing me back. But I agree with what you said, Josh. Like, if you want to see it, and just go in with that expectation of it's a over the top cartoon of a movie. Like, it's a lot of fun. Turn your brain off and just go for the ride.
Pun intended. Go for the ride.
I love that.
I did want to try something that, I mean, maybe it can be a thing, maybe it can't be a thing. I just wanted to try it maybe for this one. I wanted to see if you guys had to give it a score. Like, if we were to do scores out of 10, what would you guys score it? I'll let you guys think about it a little bit, because I came prepared, because I was thinking that it could be fun maybe if we did it. We don't do it for all movies, but for some movies. I looked at it and I sort of went up and down a little bit, and then I was like, okay, I would give this movie 6.4 out of 10. And I said that because I was like 6 feels like too low. That's like D- on the verge of an F, But it's definitely not up into C, because C is already like a solid pass. And I'm like, there was too much about this movie that drew me back, but I still had fun and I still liked it. So I was like 64 out of 100, or 6.4 out of 10. That was my score for it.
I would give it 7.3.
I like it.
Because I'm a child and I loved it. Even though I had more nitpicks in this one and I was tired of the testosterone fuel and dick jokes, I enjoyed it. I'm not going to go back and see it again. It's one of those, like, one and done, kind of similar to Vince. But I would tell people to go see it, just because I would literally tell them, I was like, if you're looking for some off the wall mindless fun, go see this. But I probably won't recommend it to people to go see it. If someone asks me about it, that's what I'll tell them. But I'm not going to go to everyone and be like, you have to go see this film.
I think I would see it again, like, in the future, not anytime soon.
The days of future past, since the Samoan old school is fighting the Czech new school, and you're like, I'm going to see it in the future, referencing the weapons of the past.
I would probably give it like a 6.
Ooh.
There are good things about this movie, but I was bored through a lot of it.
Too long.
It's just too long. It's just so long. I don't want to dedicate that much time to it again. If I'm going to dedicate that much time, I'm going to watch one of the old Fast and Furious movies. I want the full team. I like The Rock. I don't love The Rock. There's such, like I said before, there's such a thing. There's too much of a good thing is a bad thing. That's what I'm trying to say. And I feel like this is what that was. It started out a lot of fun, and by the end of it, I was just like, wrap it up, I'm done. So I give it a 6. I guess I would recommend it if people want it. I'd recommend it to people who like Fast and the Furious, but if you don't, I wouldn't go see it.
Well, yeah, because even though it's not strictly inside, it's part of the Fast and the Furious franchise. And so if you're into the movies, like, it's not a requirement, but it's like, yeah, go see it because it's part of it, and you've got this, side story with them, and you'll like it.
And it'll be fun. Like, it was funny, crazy action. It's a great summer blockbuster. The end.
I'll repeat it. Indefensibly dumb, but a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The end.
I think that's a podcast, guys. I think that sums it up. If you want to go see it, you can take our recommendations and maybe go see it. Maybe even save your shekels and go get it at Redbox later. I don't know. But, yeah. Give us a follow on the Pause, Rewind, Play podcast on Instagram and also the Pause, Rewind, Play on Twitter. And you will be able to follow us there. I don't know. Anything else we got to close out with?
Shout out to you guys for talking to us both on those Instagram and Twitter as well. I know that in our last bonus episode, we had talked a little bit about, we were talking about the movie reboots, and we talked about Indiana Jones, and we didn't know exactly when Disney had bought it out and everything. And who was it?
Tyler, yeah.
Tyler Lambert let us know that it was bought out. So they did Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull in 2009, and then Disney bought out Lucasfilm in 2012.
And I am so grateful you responded personally. It made me feel heard and validated. So thank you. Thank you. Shout out to you, guy. I don't know.
Just for that, Tyler, we're going to do Alita for you.
Exactly. So both you and everyone who's been on Twitter and other places, we have heard your cries, and somewhat reluctantly, at least for me, our next episode will be Alita Battle Angel. Pretty excited and scared at the same time, at least for me.
With every bit of Josh's reluctance, I'm putting +3 excitement towards this because I'm so pumped.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it too. I was very skeptical about this one, but the amount of the fan base is crazy. Like, you guys love it. So there's got to be something in this movie, and I'm excited to see what it is.
I mean, I'd love to be proved wrong because right now, for me, I'm almost annoyed, but it's, it could be misplaced because I haven't seen it. Because I go on to, when I'm on the Pause, Rewind, Play Twitter account, and I retweet or look at IMDb posts or Rotten Tomato posts, whenever they ask some sort of question about good movies in 2019, half of the tweets are about Alita Battle Angel. And I'm just like, this is crazy. And I almost get annoyed, but then I'm like, it has to have this fan base for a reason.
Yeah.
So even though I was reluctant because it just doesn't look my style, but I will go in with an open mind and make sure you tune in next week to hear what we think about Alita Battle Angel. Anything else, guys?
No, that was fun.
That was way fun. So thank you again for tuning into the Pause, Rewind, Play podcast, and we'll catch you next time.